Did it! You flipped the switch on a massive system conversion. The celebration's over, the project team is finally getting some sleep. But let's be real, the real work is just getting started. Let's dive into what happens after you go live.
I mean, this is the big question, isn't it? You've likely spent months, maybe even years getting to this point. And now that it's live, you've got this mix of excitement for all the new stuff and just a little bit of terror, hoping nothing important broke. So what's the game plan for day one and beyond?
Well, the challenge really boils down to this balancing act. On one side, you have to ensure stability. I'm talking about the core business processes, the stuff that keeps the lights on. They have to work, period. That's goal number one. But on the other side, you didn't do all this work just to stand still. The whole point was to get new, better tools. Goal number two is to actually use them and drive improvement.
So how do you manage both of those goals at the same time? You can't just throw everyone into the new system and hope for the best. You need a plan, a structured approach, and we're going to call this one a tale of two sprints.
And honestly, it's a beautifully simple strategy. First, you confirm. You make absolutely sure the foundation is solid and nothing is broken. Only after that's done do you move on to step two. You improve. You start exploring all the new value you just paid for. Let's break down what each of these sprints actually looks like.
Okay, so let's dig into sprint one, confirming the core. Think of this as your safety net. Before you can get creative and start innovating, you have to validate. This phase is all about managing risk and making sure it's business as usual.
The whole goal here is to prove that your critical business processes are functionally unchanged. We are not looking for shiny new features just yet. We're making sure that a process like order to cash, for example, still gives you the exact same result it did yesterday. And you'll do this using the tools your team already knows inside and out, like the classic SAP GUI.
Okay, so once that foundation is rock solid, now we get to the fun part. Let's jump into sprint two. This is where you shift gears from just keeping the business running to actually transforming it. This is where you start to see the real return on that massive investment.
And the number one goal for Sprint 2 is crystal clear. Get people to adopt the new, modern SAP Fiori apps. The whole idea is to get your users out of those old transaction codes and into a user experience that's way more intuitive, more powerful, and just better.
But here's the thing. You can't just run a training session, show off some cool-looking dashboards, and expect everyone to change their ways, you know? People are creatures of habit. So how do you actually get them to change how they've been working, sometimes for years? And here it is. This is the secret sauce. The big aha moment for your users isn't going to come from some generic demo. It happens when they see their own data, their sales orders, their customers, their reports, all lit up in that new Fiori interface. That's the moment the light bulb goes on. That's when they see the value for themselves and actually want to make the switch. All right, so this two-sprint strategy works wonders in that first converted sandbox system. But how do you scale it up? How do you turn this into a repeatable process that guarantees a smooth rollout across your entire company?
You do it with a phased approach. It's methodical. You start in the sandbox, you run your two sprints, you find all the kinks. Then, you move to your development system where you apply all those fixes and do more formal, structured testing. And only then, when you're confident, are you ready for the production system and the final business process tests. Now you might be wondering, how on earth do you keep all of this organized? With so many moving parts, you absolutely need a single source of truth. And that's where a tool like SAP Cloud ALM becomes your best friend. Think of it as the central command post for the whole operation. Every test case, every piece of feedback, every bug fix, it all gets documented right there so nothing slips through the cracks. So we've covered a lot of ground. If you're going to remember just one thing from all of this, what should it be? Let's boil it down to the core idea. It all comes down to the number two, the two-sprint strategy. It's such a simple framework, but it is incredibly powerful. Don't try to do everything at once. First, confirm. Make sure your foundation is solid. Then, and only then, do you unleash your team to improve and innovate. Confirm, then improve. That's it.
And that really leaves us with one last question for you to think about. As you plan your next big project, ask yourself this. Is your team's plan just focused on validating that the past still works? Or does it have a clear, intentional strategy for actually building your future?
All right, let's talk about